Hi, I'm Judy Cole, the Executive Vice President and CEO of the MIT Alumni Association, and I'm delighted to welcome you to this web production of the MIT Alumni Association.
Welcome to today's MIT Faculty Forum online edition. I'm Wade Roush from MIT's Program in Science, Technology, and Society and fellow MIT alum, and I'm your host today. Thanks for joining us. Today we are talking about alumni who chose to pursue research roles in the corporate world rather than pursuing academic life. And given the career flavor of the topic today, I wanted to start out by putting in a plug for the Alumni Association's Career Lunch and Learn series. There are co-sponsor for today's webcast. According to the Central Career Office at MIT, 41% of graduating PhDs last year went on to postdocs, and the other 55% or 60% went into the workforce. Only about half of the people going into the workforce found jobs in academia. So today, as I said, we're turning to three alumni who have gone the other way, at least in one case, pursuing a career after pursuing an industry career after an academic career, and two others who went straight into industry. So it's our chance to kind of think about different career paths and for you to interact directly with three alumni who have done that. All Course 6 people, as you'll see, all electrical engineering, computer science. I'll introduce them in a second. Let me first explain how you guys can interact with our guests today. This is an interactive forum, and if you're watching this on the MIT Alumni homepage, you can see there's a form right underneath the video window, and that's the place where you can enter questions. They will pop up directly in my screen, and I'll be able to relay those questions to our panelists later in the broadcasts, and so I'll keep an eye on that form, and that's how we will take your incoming questions. Okay, let's turn to our esteemed panelists today. We're very happy to have three folks from Course 6 here. We have Soonmin Bae from Hanwha. She's a principal research engineer at Hanwha, and she has a 2009 PhD from MIT. We also have Marshall Tappan, a 2006 PhD, who is a principal applied scientist at Amazon. And we also have Jaime Teevan, who is a 2007 PhD and is a principal researcher at Microsoft. And I'm going to start off by asking each of them to spend a few minutes explaining what they're up to in their respective workplaces. And maybe each of you could also try and draw a link between your current work and your PhD work at MIT, so we kind of get a sense of the line that drew you from PhD work, from your dissertation into whatever you're doing now. So Soonmin, can we start with you there at Hanwha? And you're dialing in, it's like 7 in the morning where you are, right? So thank you so much for joining us so early in your day in South Korea.
Okay, thank you for the introduction. Yeah, I'm honored to be here. So I'm a principal research engineer at Hanwha TechQueen. I'm leading a computer vision team here. I'm gonna show a demo video while explaining what I'm working on here. Okay. Do you see the video?
Yes, we do.
Okay. So Hanwha TechQueen is the largest defense company in South Korea and is formerly known as Samsung TechQueen. We make security cameras for defense, boundary defense, border defense, and surveillance solutions. Also, we make autonomous vehicles, including drones and unmanned ground vehicles. We call our product Total Surveillance Solution, since not only we make hardwares, but we also provide software that controls and monitors cameras, drones, and unmanned ground vehicles. So in this video, is showing how our total surveillance solution works when there's intrusion. Yeah, this is control center. There is an intruder, and our camera found the intrusion. And it passed the information to the center, and ground vehicle and drones got the information. So our computer team is in charge of developing human vehicle detection and tracking in real time. Yeah, the unmanned ground vehicle has 3D map and collision avoidance system. Yeah, I think finally the suspect is arrested. So that's pretty much all. Okay, let me back to. Oh, I'm back. Okay, so this is pretty much what we are doing at Hanwha Techwin. So at MIT, I was in graphics group, and my main work was computational photography, which combines computer vision, computer graphics, and image processing all together. And now I extend that to the real product in defense business and security business. So our team has background in computer vision. So we are very excited to ship our algorithm in the real product. I think that's it.
Thanks, Soonmin. That's really amazing work. I would not want to be that intruder guy because you can kind of tell he was a goner, right? That was amazing. So, okay, well, I'm sure we'll get to talk a little more later about what specific applications there are for computer vision in those kinds of surveillance and first responder devices. So, but that's amazing stuff. Thank you so much. Why don't we go next to Marshall at Amazon. Marshall, can you tell us about, you probably can't tell us about what you're doing at Amazon, but what can you talk about?
So actually, I'm one of the few on one of the few science teams that can talk pretty openly about what we are doing. So I'm on Amazon Fulfillment Technologies. It's the division of Amazon that takes place basically after you hit buy on the Amazon homepage or on the Amazon page, and whatever you ordered has to go in a box and get to your house. We're the division that handles all of that. And so I'm on a computer vision team that looks at bringing automation and specifically computer vision technology into we call it the fulfillment process, right? So when we fulfill an order, that's us shipping a box to you. And so we're looking at developing new devices and then integrating them inside the existing pipeline or process to find ways to make the process more efficient and get orders to our customers more reliably and also more efficiently.
Can you say a little more, Marshall? So where would computer vision come into that? At what steps in the fulfillment process?
Right. So that starts actually at the very beginning. So initially the team started with just applying kind of industry standard technologies like barcode scanners, things like that. Now we're looking at much more specific things, such as about 3 years ago, Amazon acquired a robotics company called Kiva Systems, and now all of our shelves that carry goods lay on these little orange robots that drive around the warehouses. So now we're installing camera systems that observe all of our inventory as it moves around the warehouse, and that allows us to look at are things going missing, are things where we expect them to be, what's the condition of the items as we ship them. And then as we go on, we're really looking at moving our computer vision efforts up even farther, identifying items, looking for damage on items, being able to track things. One of the hard things in our business is as we become better and better at shipping things as expectations rise, right? So a few years ago, 2-day shipping was a big deal. Well, now we have 1-day shipping, and this year we launched Prime Now, which is 1-hour shipping. So at every step, as things go wrong, and or if things go missing, or we can't find something, that really disrupts our ability to meet that promise. And so we're looking at using computer vision technology to recognize and track items at every stage as they move through our warehouses and into shipments.
That's amazing stuff. So, okay, we'll get back to a lot of those details again as the segment progresses. So, thanks, Marshall, for that brief introduction. And let's now go to Jaime Teevan at Microsoft. Jaime, can you tell us about what you're up to? You work for Microsoft Research specifically, right?
Yes, I do. Yeah. So my name is Jaime Teevan. I am a principal researcher at Microsoft, and I'm also affiliate faculty at the University of Washington. What I do is actually very much an extension of what I did as a graduate at MIT. So I did my graduate work at MIT with David Karger. Rob Miller was on my committee. I looked at personalized search, thinking about, what kinds of patterns do we have in how we access information, and how can we take advantage of those patterns to help people refine information or get to new information that might be contextually relevant to what you're interested in now. Microsoft Research is essentially a really large graduate school where hundreds of PhDs sit around and continue doing research. The difference is we're paid a little bit better, and we have a few more resources to get what we need to get done. Our goal is to be thinking 5 to 10 years down what might be disruptive for Microsoft. So we're not looking to make sort of immediate short-term impact on the Microsoft products. Instead, we're trying to think about when a major disruption comes, when there's an industry shift, when something really significant is going to change for the company, how can we help take advantage of that change? So one example actually there is relates to my research in search. Microsoft was a little bit back on its heels when we sort of figured out that search was going to be a really important way of both accessing information and also understanding how people think about and understand the world, how they query for things, how they interact with information. And because we had, even though Microsoft wasn't completely ready for that shift, because we had a bunch of researchers in Microsoft Research who were excited and thinking about those problems as sort of future problems, we were able to move really quickly and put together what is an amazing search engine now. And so some of the work that I did in personalized search, kind of growing from my dissertation, ended up actually being the first personalized search algorithm to ship in Bing also. So when you search on Bing and find information that's contextually relevant to you, that's stuff that I did. And that's stuff that I did 5 years before it was useful, and nobody knew it was going to be useful when I was doing it.
Jaime, are you also thinking about the benefits of perhaps slowing down search results in some specific cases? Because that's kind of an interesting and counterintuitive idea, right? So just say a little more about that, and maybe we can also come back to it later. But what do you mean by slow search?
Yeah, so I'm really excited about this notion of slow search, and it kind of comes back to my underlying interest in how people conduct long-term tasks. So there's this really interesting irony in the way that we search, in that it's well known by search engines, and we've done lots of experiments at Bing and at Google and other places, that when your search results are delayed even 100 or 200 milliseconds, so basically almost nothing, when your search results are delayed that much so that you can't even notice it, you actually interact with the search results less, you think they're of lower quality. So search engines spend a lot of time trying to eke out, an extra 50 milliseconds. We might show fewer links on the search result page. We might show fewer graphics. We spend a lot of time thinking about how fast we can get you that content, and we do that. When we do that, we're sacrificing the quality of the search results that we give you. The reason it's ironic is half of the time that we have the queries that we issue to search engines are actually part of these long search sessions. So we do some sort of short twitch searching where you might enter Facebook and go straight to Facebook. But most of the time we spend on search engines are like, oh, we're researching our vacation in Hawaii, or we're trying to learn about a medical diagnosis that we recently had. And these are really long, involved searches where 100 milliseconds doesn't matter. And it's really interesting to think about, both from a user experience perspective and an algorithmic perspective, what it would mean if a search engine could take a little bit more time. And it's just so different from everything we've been thinking about in search, where we're trying to be as fast as possible, because it makes a real difference to start thinking about what's it like to be slow. And then also, what's it like for us to support exploration and learning during search, serendipitous encounters, things that are a little bit more involved and support curiosity and learning.
Thank you so much for going into that slightly more depth. That's great. Yeah. So I wanted to maybe ask a question that each of you could probably help to answer, and that's about maybe the culture of career thinking as a grad student at MIT, specifically in the computer science and artificial intelligence lab or other parts of electrical engineering and computer science. So when you are starting out as a grad student, I'm curious what each of you would say about the different career paths that are presented to you as options, right? Do your advisors basically try and push you toward academia, or is there an openness right from the beginning to the idea that you might well end up working in industry? And are you hedging your bets along the way, or in what way are you preparing to go in one direction or the other? Do you feel like you would be equally supported if you said right up front, hey, I really want to work for Microsoft, I want to work for Amazon, I want to work for Google, I want to work for Samsung? Would that be an endorsed, accepted ambition? Or is there a sense that no, we're really about, at MIT, we're about turning out the next generation of academic computer scientists, and that's that? Or it's somewhere in between, I'm imagining, and I'd like to hear each of you talk about that. Jaime, do you want to go first?
Sure. So at Microsoft Research, I actually live in this weird middle zone where my primary output is publications, and so I feel very academic despite being at a company. I would say as a graduate at MIT, my experience was not particularly career focused in general. It was very research focused. And so it was about learning how to be a researcher, and sort of where I went and what I did with that research seemed less relevant. I think I very much appreciate that my advisor encouraged me to do internships, because I think one challenge as a graduate student is a lot of times we don't have a lot of experience with industry, and it's useful to go and see companies and see how they work and see how research is relevant and plays into those. And so, and that's part of why I did an internship at Microsoft Research, and that was what ended up bringing me there. And certainly my advisor facilitated that internship and encouraged me to go there. He sometimes encourages me to move back to academia now, but
Soonmin, what about you? Did you feel any pressure one direction or the other when you were at MIT?
No, not actually. My advisor, Fredo, also gave me a chance to work as an intern at Adobe, and I really liked that experience working at Adobe, like being productive and seeing our work is really shipped to the product. And I found that was very interesting, but at the time I wasn't sure that whether I want to pursue the academia or industry at the time. But so after I graduated, Samsung approached and kind of suggested this position, and I found that position was really interesting. That in terms of the application, the border defense and surveillance cameras, that's something I found meaningful. So I thought, oh, maybe this is very interesting and meaningful. Maybe I should work there. So, but I didn't expect that I would to work this long. Maybe I was thinking maybe I will change after like 2 or 3 years working at Samsung. But in terms of work and life balance was really good, and people here was really I like people here, and the problems and topics and applications were really interesting, and I didn't have to worry about what problems I have to solve, but there are so many problems and products that I need to work on. So that's kind of good part that that makes me always productive and always think about how to solve the problem and how to work with people, including sales people and marketing. And I like that collaboration part as well at Samsung.
That's excellent. So, Marshall, you're unique on the panel in that you've actually done both, right?
Yes.
So, can you describe your path a little bit? Because
Sure.
you took a pit stop in academia before you went to Amazon, right?
Mm-hmm. Yeah. So actually, when I started grad school, I was dead set that I wanted to be a professor. And so, funny thing is, actually, my advisor, as I was leaving, I was starting to start my job search, actually advised me against trying to stay in academia. And we had a conversation where he actually was like, you really should go look at opportunities in industry too. And so it was not just that he encouraged me to stay in academia, he actually told me to look elsewhere. So I spent 7 years at the University of Central Florida. So after I graduated, I took a tenure track position at the University of Central Florida that's in Orlando. Was there for 7 years, got tenure, and then about 11 months after I got tenure, I decided, all right, it's time to go to something new, and started looking for positions in industry. Academia was great. I think in a lot of ways, I've learned a lot of things there that have really helped me be successful in my career now. And I think a lot of the skills that I learned as a professor really would have taken me much longer to learn in my role here. Why I left was at the time, so my research specialty is computer vision and machine learning, and really there's been increasing excitement, over the last decade, but really over the last 3 or 4 years, I think interest in industry and computer vision has really exploded. And so I was sitting there in academia thinking, boy, it seems like some of the momentum is shifting. And actually, was having conversations with other academic colleagues, worrying that, is the momentum in our industry going to shift from academia to industry, where the resources are more, the access to data is, you have a lot more access to data, and you have more continuity, where you're not having to rebuild your program every 6 years. And so I started looking at opportunities in industry and just got excited about some of the things that are going on. And so I jumped to Amazon about 2.5 years ago, and I've had a great time. We're putting devices in the warehouses that capture a few million images per day. And so it's been a real interesting experience where we've come in and not only done research, so I'm doing the things I used to do in academia in terms of activity recognition, object recognition, unsupervised learning, but now I'm doing them in an interesting context where I have access to a system that generates 1 million pictures of images a day. We have lots of interesting types of metadata that come from our databases, and we also get to see the whole process from come up with an idea, get it developed, start working with a software team to put it in production, and actually see its results from a business impact. And it's also been an interesting thing to think about, having to defend our ideas, not just in an academic sense in terms of, is this interesting, is this new technology that we need to pursue, but also how do we apply these ideas to actually do, to help make our business better and make our customer experience better. So it's been a kind of a new dimension that I didn't explore as much before as an academic. That's been a lot of fun and really satisfying.
Marshall, a lot of people would look at somebody like you who has tenure and say, you must be crazy to leave a tenured job at a recognized university for a job in industry. But so I'm curious whether you would have left a job like that for anything less than a place like Amazon, right? Which is a huge, growing, stable company, right?
Yeah. So it is. I mean, in some sense, in tenure you have a lot of stability. At the same time, I talked with another senior colleague in computer vision who has never been in academia, but certainly he's a well-known academic. Who was at Microsoft Research for a long time, and as he put it, he goes, I figure I'm paraphrasing here, but I know what I'm doing. There's a lot going on, and if it doesn't work out at this company, or we have problems here, I'll find another place to go do something interesting. And so I think really it's a pretty golden era right now in terms of computer science, but also specifically artificial intelligence and computer vision, that there's so many opportunities that I think it's kind of like you trade that guaranteed stability of tenure with kind of an expected stability, because there's just so much happening that that there's so much going on. I feel like there's going to be demand for PhD level talent in this area for decades.
Mm-hmm. We have a question coming in from Ellen in Boston, and I'm going to direct this to Soonmin and Jaime. When during your PhD program did you know you were not going into academia?
Well, I only applied to academic places and Microsoft Research. So for me, MSR was a academic choice. So I'm perhaps not the right one to answer this.
No, I get it. I mean, certainly like a little mini university inside Microsoft. Yeah.
Right.
Right. So okay, so in your mind, you were sort of applying for academic type jobs or R&D style jobs, and you didn't know until you got that offer from MSR.
Yes.
Okay. Soonmin, what about you?
Okay, so I was doing my postdoc, and I was sitting in my office alone, and I found this is kind of lonely. I want it more like, I don't know. I want to see more, like I want to see product like progress more often, like some quick movement and some like yeah, I think I preferred working with more people and many people all together and see things going on in a really quick speed. But still, even after I started working at Samsung, I wonder whether I have to go back to academia path or not. Still, I'm kind of wondering whether there is any chance that if if in some years, like or 5 years later, maybe I want to shift back to academia position. But for now, I'm pretty happy here. Like I'm, yeah, the projects I'm working on is really interesting. So I these days I don't work, like I don't think about and I don't consider the academia position anymore. But maybe later, a few years later, maybe I will maybe I'm not sure when this like yeah this ends, but
Yes, I
yeah.
think soon. I'm sorry.
No, go ahead, Jamie.
Oh yeah, I was just saying. I think Soonmin has a great point. So that I sort of avoided in my answer, which was when I visited Microsoft Research and thought about going there, what was attractive about it and what helped me make that decision to go there. And I would say one thing that she mentions that I find particularly compelling was the people in the lab. And one thing that I found exciting about being in an industrial position as opposed to an academic position is universities tend to try and hire people to own a field. So, your job when you interview is to position yourself as how you're going to contribute to the department to create kind of diversity, whereas industry tends to be looking for, like, this is an area we want to invest in and hire a lot of people in that area. And so I really did enjoy going from somewhere where my job was to kind of stake out my own claim and be my own expert in my own space to somewhere where I had a team of people who were all excited about the same problems. And I found that really exciting. And then also kind of piggybacking on something that Marshall said that I thought was really helped me with that decision as well was this kind of connection with the real world. So it's fun to have people's real problems. It's fun to have real data to operate on. And it's fun to be able to make a real impact on how people interact with the world. And so that was really compelling as well.
So if I could jump in,
Yeah,
I
please.
think as you're thinking about this kind of academia versus industry, I think you need to, one, figure out what you really want out of your career, and two, figure out, think about if you can get that in lots of places. For example, you might say, well, I really like to work with young people. So I work with young people every summer, right? So we have, I know Microsoft Research has internships. Pretty much every large tech company now is doing internships, right? So there's a lot of the experiences that you think about only being in academia that actually end up happening in industry too. So, the intern kind of mentor relationship is a lot like a professor-student relationship, and especially at the PhD level, a lot of interns will end up publishing with their industry advisors. Here at Amazon, we have internal conferences where we'll share algorithms, publish research. So it's kind of like publishing. Some places like Microsoft Research or other places will actually publish externally in conferences too. And then also, I think one thing to think about as you're making that decision is something we've encountered a lot. As after 6 years of grad school, you're pretty much conditioned that your validation in life is getting that publication in a top journal or top conference, because that's what gets you out of there. But I think you need to think about what validates you. Everyone needs validation, but maybe it doesn't need to be a specific way. And so if really what validates you is getting something exciting working or making an impact, then there's a lot of ways to think to achieve that in a lot of different venues.
Great. So we have a question from Matt in Longboat Key, Florida. And it keeps us on this track of industry versus academia. Have you considered your likely career situation at age 50 or older in a tenured academic job versus an industry job? So this is the question about, job security, I guess, and retirement plans and long-term thinking. And how does that play into a decision about academia versus industry?
Do you want me to jump into that one?
Marshall, why don't you jump in? Sure.
Yeah. So it reminds me of a funny story. So I was at Florida during the Great Recession, and at one point they actually cut the pension plans pretty significantly. And one of the professors made the right comment. He says, "Yeah, I've got a retirement plan. I'm going to work all the way through retirement. And so because they can't get rid of me. So there is that aspect of that. I mean, definitely the tech industry has a reputation. You'll hear talks about ageism and things like that. I'll say here at Amazon, at the senior levels, I see lots of people who I guess are in their 50s or kind of look at that level of their career. So I think there is a rule. I think having been here now, having kind of seen both sides, I think what people farther along in their careers bring is real maturity and a real sense of leadership that you just can't duplicate in a person who's 2 or 3 years out. And so I haven't seen that in my career so far yet. This kind of idea that, oh, what will people do when they're 50? They'll, let's get rid of all the 50-year-olds. What I do see is a lot of projects that need well-seasoned people that know how to not only work the technology, but also kind of see the bigger picture, handle the interactions between teams, handle the interactions between the business and things like that. And there's a lot of leadership there that I think can't be replaced and has become even more important. So it's not something that I worry about, I guess.
Soonmin or Jaime, do either of you worry about job security and what might happen after age 50?
Well, I mean, in some ways, to be fair, there's a very small percentage of the world with a guaranteed job after 50. This is a question almost nobody knows exactly, has tenure and guaranteed employment. So I think part of, we all do retirement planning. I make a lot more money in industry versus academia. I'm able to save for my retirement well. Maybe I'll retire at age 50. But I mean, I plan on, I would say most of us are probably very passionate about our work, excited about what we're doing. I plan on, my story right now is I'm never quitting. They're going to have to kick me out, whether that's through affiliate associations with universities or, convincing at Microsoft or whatever. That's something that I plan on doing. And I think Marshall had a reasonable point earlier too. A lot of the skills that we learned in training to be researchers and at MIT, sort of as technologists, are skills that are going to carry over and be useful in the coming future.
Yeah. So for me, I don't want. So since I'm enjoying working here a lot, I don't want to sacrifice that fun for job security. And I actually me and my colleagues talk about startup a lot. So maybe we have business ideas, models, and products, and maybe we want to jump into startup business instead of staying in a large company. So for me, job security is something I can overcome as long as I have some technology background and I have good business ideas, and then I can overcome easily from my viewpoint. And also, I think because we are gonna live until over 100 years, so I want to switch my career really dramatically. I want to go for another degree, really different area, like arts or education or something like kids. So I'm interested in kids. So I want to go for some daycare business. Yeah, that's whole in my mind as well. So yeah, job security is not a big issue for me.
I love that, Soonmin. So I hope if you get another degree, I hope you come back to MIT to do it. Okay, all right. So we have one more question from Ellen in Boston, who is actually sending us a lot of great questions. So thank you, Ellen in Boston. Did each of you, I'm sure you had friends who were studying in other fields at MIT, and I'm wondering, and Ellen is wondering whether people outside of Course 6 maybe had a harder time navigating this decision or this path into industry than people in Course 6. And I actually also, I'll say that I have direct evidence from talking with people in biology and chemistry and other departments that there's not necessarily as much support across MIT for industry jobs as you guys probably get inside Course 6. So is that your impression too? And what what happened to your friends? Nobody has any tales to share?
Most
Well,
of my non-Core 6 friends went into academia.
yeah, exactly. That's what I'm saying. That they didn't. It's a much more expected path, I think, in a lot of other fields. And I would say Course 6 is maybe the most progressive in terms of advising and preparing its students for lives in academia. I mean, sorry, in industry, which is a good thing. So maybe I'm asking the wrong crowd this question, right? Yeah, it's a hard one. Maybe I'll move on to some other questions here. So a lot of the other questions actually relate to some of the research you folks are doing. And we have an Amazon person here, so we have a lot of questions coming in about Amazon. Marshall, can you say anything about on drone delivery? I think people are really curious about whether fulfillment from Amazon is going to take the. I mean, obviously, the Amazon has put us kind of a stake in the ground as far as drone delivery. Do you ever really think about drones though as a potential vehicle for getting packages to people? And would computer vision play into that?
So I should say that the drone team is one of those teams that is very secretive, and so Amazon has very deep silos, and actually I'm not disclosed on the drone project inside Amazon, so I can't speak very specifically. I just don't know what's going on. I can tell you they have a great team with some excellent computer vision people there. That said, I've learned not to doubt anything. So certainly, I think if you look at the trends of self-driving cars, the drone work, the robotics work, certainly some sort of automated delivery is bound to happen. I think it's just those technologies are advancing fast enough and becoming reliable enough that something is bound to happen. It's definitely trends that we are thinking about, that we want to stay close to. And this is again, I should say, not being very thinking kind of about general ideas. You know, one thing that we've talked about a lot, just kind of in random conversations, in mixers and stuff, is how does this automation change the economy? And when there's a car that you can just call on your cell phone, it picks you up in 10 minutes, or it can drive anywhere you want. How does that change how we deliver things, how we structure our homes? How everyone 50 years ago had a box on their doorstep for milk every morning. Well, in 20 years, is everyone going to have an Amazon box where a robot comes and drops your package for the day, right? So things like that are interesting, and I would say, in many ways, when I heard about it, I was a skeptic too. But just seeing kind of industry and technology in general, I think we'll be surprised in 10 years how things are getting to our houses and how our whole economy is being structured.
I think we will too. That question about drones was from Melissa in Toronto, and we have another question coming in from Kyle in Baltimore. And this is for Soonmin. Kyle is wondering whether Hanwha uses stereo vision algorithms for drones or other robots to avoid objects in tight settings. Like in that video, I think you showed a robot was driving through a garage. So, Soonmin, is that how do computer vision and stereo and other technologies play into helping devices navigate in tight spaces? Is that one of the applications you think about?
Yeah, so actually our unmanned ground vehicle has very expensive LiDAR system inside. So it's not it does not depend on stereo for now. But the other applications I worked on, I use sometimes I use stereo cameras, or sometimes I use Kinect, like 3D sensors, or there are many different types of 3D sensors. So I have experience working with those sensors. For stereo, for now we are not using stereo for drones either. We rather equip drone with thermal cameras for some detection defects, but we are not relying on stereo for now.
Okay. We have more technology questions coming in. Here's one for Jaime from Nathan in Woodside, California. Jaime asks, sorry, this is a question for Jaime, and Nathan asks, what is the search industry learning from China? Specifically, I guess, from companies like Baidu and other major search engines that operate in China. Since there are so many searches being performed every day in China, is that a good place for us to learn about search, the needs and the behavior of search customers?
Yeah, I think China's a really interesting market. I actually worked with Robin Lee, who went and founded Baidu. I was at InfoSeek before coming to MIT, which is a really early search engine, and there was about 80 to 100 of us, and one of them was Robin. The way that search works in China is certainly very different, and actually a whole bunch of things. I think where we're going to learn, one of the things I find interesting that's happening in China right now is the popularity of Xiaoais too. So there's all sorts of different ways that people are interacting with information. And Xiaoais is this bot that you can basically talk with and that will talk back to you and allow you to have conversations. And thinking about like how you can use conversational interfaces like that perhaps to start surfacing information to people and helping them find what they want in the context of conversations or other kinds of interactions, I think is a really interesting area. So it's a fascinating market. It's got certainly very different and very similar kinds of constraints. There's a lot of great research happening in that space right now, as well as industrial stuff.
Cool. We have a question that is sort of general for all three of you, and this goes back to the career path question. So Anna is asking, how did you go about finding the right company and group to work with, and at what point in the interview process was this obvious to you or revealed to you? Did you target different groups within the company to apply for, or did you apply through sort of a general applicant pool and then figure out where to work after you got through the first round of interviews? In other words, how did you end up where you are now inside your company? Jaime, I think I know the answer because you applied specifically to Microsoft.
I'm boring.
Right. Soonmin, what about you?
Okay, so I had multiple interviews with different companies. It's hard to tell. It wasn't that logical. So during the interview with Tech Queen, the people, they asked very interesting questions, and that really drew my attention. So I was like, oh, maybe I want to work with these people. They know what I'm interested in. So that's kind of feeling that I got during the interview. That's why I started thinking seriously about the industrial job. Previous interviews was not like that. The questions were not that interesting during the interviews, and the applications were not. I wasn't into that. The other applications and product lines, but somehow as I told you, I wasn't sure that I was gonna stay this long in this company. I thought maybe at most 3 years, but after like 6 years working in this company, I'm very satisfied. So I still get many like offers and many like emails from other companies, but I kind of said I'm really fine here. I'm still working. I have many problems I'm still working on. So if you start working on one company, doesn't mean that you are going to stay that company for long. So you can switch to other company, I think, even after starting in one company.
Really good point. Marshall, were you recruited specifically by the fulfillment people at Amazon, or how did you wind up working in that part of the company?
Yeah, so when I decided that I was leaving, I reached out to colleagues. For personal reasons, we kind of targeted the Seattle area as an area that we wanted to move to. So I reached out to colleagues at Microsoft. At the time, Microsoft and Amazon were the two biggest people looking for computer vision talent in the area. And so I reached out to colleagues. Having been a professor, I had a network of colleagues at both companies and kind of explored opportunities. Then kind of honed in with the fulfillment team once I visited. if I was starting again, or if I was a person looking to kind of make a move, of course your personal network is always best. That said, don't be afraid to apply to the online job requisitions, particularly in areas that are hot right now, like artificial intelligence, computer vision. Those requisitions are up because people want to fill those positions, so people will respond quickly. I should say, if you're an MIT grad and you want to join Amazon, send me an email. We are hiring. So I'm the only Marshall Tap in North America. You can Google or Bing me, and you'll find my contact information. So I'm happy to help there.
All right, you'll probably get a boatload of emails now.
I'm happy to take them.
Okay, super. Well, this was so fun. We're actually out of time, but I want to thank each of the three panelists today, Soonmin Bae from Hanwha, Marshall Tappan at Amazon, and Jaime Teevan at Microsoft Research. This has been a really delightful conversation. We did get more questions than we had time to get to in the discussion, so we'll share the leftover questions with the panelists by email, and they might be able to respond afterwards. Let's see. I'd like to say that on behalf of the Alumni Association and the STS program at MIT, we're very glad you tuned in today to this Faculty Forum Online Alumni Edition, co-sponsored today by the MIT Alumni Career Lunch and Learn series. You can also learn more about future programs coming up in this series at the MIT Alumni Association webpage. You can tweet about the event using the hashtag MITAlum, and you can send us follow-up questions and feedback at alumnilearn@mit.edu. And that's it. Thanks everybody for watching, and especially thanks to our panelists for joining us today. So take care, everybody.
Thank you.
Thanks again for joining us. For more information on future MIT Alumni Association productions, please visit our website.